Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Streamed and Screened, an entertainment podcast about movies and TV from Lee Enterprises. I'm Terry Lipschutz, managing editor of the National Newsroom at Lee and co-host of the program with Bruce Miller, editor of the Sioux City Journal and a longtime entertainment reporter. And you're somebody that has multiple jobs out there. I mean, you wear many hats.
I do.
Actors do too, right?
You know, it's odd because I was talking with an actor who's in one of those touring Broadway productions. Their terms are basically a year contract.
Okay.
And then what do you do? What comes after that? And of course, they audition for other shows, or they try to get a TV series or a one-off or whatever, but they're constantly unemployed. And I said, what was this like for you? What is that, that experience? Because they don't teach that in school. They don't tell you, okay, you're going to have downtime. Here's what you need to do with the downtime. And so he decided, well, first of all, he couldn't get a job. He decided if he went to a cruise, if he performed on a cruise ship, he would at least be employed, he'd be making money, he could bank money, have something in spare in case he wasn't getting the work he was looking for. And he said it is the best thing for somebody graduating from college is to go to a cruise ship, because you will know in a minute if you can handle that kind of stress. He says you're in a room that has no windows, basically. You're held hostage on the ship. You don't know where you're going to go or what you're going to do. You do 8 shows a week. You are just this machine. And he says, yeah, you get to go off and, visit the sites that they're going to. But for the most part, it really tests your ability to hang in there. And he said they don't teach you these kinds of things. And I thought, I think I want to do that. I want to be somebody who can help you over that hurdle. So he's becoming a life coach.
Oh.
Isn't that an interesting way of going about it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then I thought, well, let's talk to some other people. And particularly during the pandemic, what did they do? How did they make money? Because people weren't going to shows. They weren't going to movies. They were all staying home. One decided to become a florist and learn how to, arrange flowers because he figured everybody would need to do that. Another got a real estate license and sold real estate. And if you see those TV shows that are about real estate agents, a lot of them are former actors. Personal trainer is a real big thing. A lot of them will do that because they're going to work out anyway. So let's just try and see what we can do. One shots at colleges and high schools where they will, do an acting workshop, or they might do a term where they're in-house for 9 weeks or whatever it might be. To me, it is not a good career. I don't think I would want to be involved with that because you're just stuck. Now, if you're somebody big, if you're Brad Pitt, for example, you're producing other things. So you get a chance to kind of keep your hand in the business. But if you don't have that kind of power, you're just hoping for whatever.
Right. Well, you look at actors like a Matthew Broderick, who has gone back and forth over the years from theater to the screen. And he's somebody who can just do that thing where he's in movies, he's in bigger productions, and then all of a sudden decide, I'm going to do a year run on Broadway for some revival or a new musical or whatever, and then do that for a year, and then they replace the cast, and he's back in movies, and then maybe he gets a call in 6 years to do, a limited run revival, but those types of people can hop around from one thing to another. But that is, 1%, less than 1% of the field. It's the small, it's everybody else. And I think you're right. A lot of times, not to go off too much on a tangent here, because there's a lot of complaints about the state of the American university system. Is it preparing people for their careers best they can? I mean, the joke is always like, the person that studies art history, right? Is that actually preparing you for the real world? And I think, like, on fairness, you want people to be able to pursue the things that they want to pursue, whether it's acting or art or whatever. But at the same time, you have to be realistic about it too. And if you are teaching somebody in school to be a musician or an actor or an artist, or you do have to provide, like, what are your career paths here? Because it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be Tom Cruise. It might mean you're doing dinner theater.
And you're eating what's left over after the show is
Right.
done, right?
Yeah.
I had a friend who could not get a loan for a house because she did not have steady employment. She would work for X number of months and then she'd look for another job. And no bank would back her on that. But she, had saved enough money and was ready for that leap, but it just didn't happen. So I do think that is something that we don't think about when we watch these people on screen, is how much do they have to put together to just keep it together?
And it's no different than a lot of other professions, athletes. There was some big talk during spring training this year. Fan of the New York Mets. One of the players that was looking to crack camp with the Mets this year was stocking shelves at a grocery store during the winter. And they called him up and they're like, hey, you want a job? You want to come to spring training? And he's like, I need to call you back. I'm actually at work right now stocking shelves, but I'll call you back. But that's kind of the reality. And really up until the last 20 years or so, a lot of athletes, when they weren't in season, they had jobs. I remember, following players that were like, he's a stockbroker. He's selling real estate, and they're
selling
like real
cars.
Jobs. Yeah, I mean, they're like, certain ones that you had mentioned. It's like, well, they're working out already, so you can become a physical trainer, a personal trainer, that kind of thing, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. But I mean, these are like put on a shirt and tie kind of jobs.
Right.
It's not just like I have a hobby on the side that I can turn into an income on the side also.
Those aren't the jobs that you can just stop.
Right.
And then go and audition for something and hope that it's going to work.
Exactly.
I know a number of them are often extras. That'll provide a certain amount of money, but you could get stuck in that world where people don't see you beyond that. And
right.
To me, not a career choice. This was one of those ones where mom and dad would sit you down and say, you've got to get a career that's going to lead to something, not something that you're just fooling around with. Although we still need actors, we still need performers, we still need that segment of society. It's just too bad they don't have a stronger kind of game plan.
I mean, we're not certainly suggesting that there shouldn't be career paths or educational paths to any of these careers, but I think I'm with you completely that there has to be some realistic look at it. And I mean, it goes with anything. I mean, I even remember when I was studying journalism in college. I'm sitting around looking in the room and like, we're not all here going to be working at a newspaper. Some of you are just here to be here. Some of you, I mean, and there's plenty of other paths you can go into studying journalism, marketing, and public relations and things like that. But there's like, no matter what your profession is or what you're studying in college, there are a finite number of jobs in most fields, and you have to be realistic about what you are. I mean, obviously, if you're studying medicine, there's probably there's a shortage of things like doctors and nurses, and you probably have, as long as you pass your courses and your tests, you will probably advance into that career. But there's other things out there. Yeah, I mean, theater major, there's only, so many big jobs out there. But you're right, too, is you see a lot of these folks. Maybe they have that bit role in a sitcom one week, and then they're doing a commercial for Cologuard the next, right?
Right.
And you've seen them.
And then they'll try to be influencers. Right. That's another thing is they'll do, they're good on camera, so they're going to tape something. Maybe they can get a little career going from that. Stand-up comedy could be another area. But it's one of those things we don't sit and think about when we're watching people. We're very good at judging them, but we aren't helping them beyond that.
I can assure you, I never think about that person in the background is like, did they balance their checkbook last night? Did they pay their utility bills? No, I mean, I'm just watching.
Are they taking too many chips from the craft service table because they need something to eat tonight?
Right, exactly.
Is that the way it goes? But
yeah.
So, and that was one of the things that came to mind. I went to Accountant 2 this weekend, and there are a ton of people in that film. In fact, it's odd because Oscar winner J.K. Simmons is in the film and dies before the opening credits.
Oh, geez.
Now you think, spoiler, by the way, he won an Oscar, for God's sakes. He's this small. The part is this small. And then what happens? And it could be, maybe the part was good and it led to something else, or he had a day and he could do it. But that is the kind of weird thing. And I thought, well, how many of those do you have to put together to make a year's living? And then
Yeah.
you see the huge kind of background cast that they have, and they all can't be just hanging at the studio door every day doing these things. So it got me to think about that stuff. Accountant 2. Okay, let's talk that for a minute.
If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I think they're just looking for their John Wick, their Liam Neeson, their whatever.
That's, yeah.
Really there are no plots to these things.
Right.
But they can recycle them a lot. They don't have to
Yep.
do it as a TV series, and you can make a ton of money from the thing.
Action movies will always bring people to the seats. Like,
Yeah.
if you see a bad comedy, you don't want to watch it. Bad dramas, but if you even if it's an action movie and there's a little bit of shooting and some of that stuff, like even a bad one can kind of keep you interested in a while. I don't know how many of these we need. You get some of those movies, especially those Liam Neeson ones. I mean, how many has he done where it's the same person over and over
Right.
again? Even when he moves into different series, it's not even the same character anymore, but it's that same role. But you keep watching it because he's there, and it's like, oh, it's Liam Neeson.
And you've got like 20 people shooting at you,
Right.
and none of them get a good shot at you. But
Never.
you can just plow the rest of them down with one person.
Yep.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Does this work? I don't know.
Well,
But-
if you're an accountant, you're good at math, and you can work the numbers in your head to take out that person.
There are 7 people here. Okay, so if I give one bullet to each, and then I have a second bullet in case I miss, yeah. But he doesn't do a lot of adding or subtracting in this thing.
Okay.
I thought that maybe there would be some kind of numbers crunching that would happen. Not.
Question for you. Question. Did you, when you went to see the accountant, did you get the special accountant popcorn bucket? Did you see that?
No, what is it? Is it a calculator?
No, it looks like a trailer.
Oh, well, he lives in an Airstream. So,
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
it's the Airstream. So it's like I saw one when I was at the AMC this weekend because I went to see the 20th anniversary re-airing of Star Wars Episode 3. And there it was in the display, that Airstream, and I guess you flip open the top and you can stuff popcorn in it. Quite frankly, it didn't look like you could fit a whole lot of popcorn in it, and it cost $20.
Yeah,
And I had my bucket, $5.99.
That's too
refill.
expensive.
Yep.
Only if you're an Airstream owner would you want to have that one.
Yeah, I gotta imagine that each theater got 3 of them. One for
right.
display and 2 to sell, and that's
And
probably
2 that the
it.
staff steals, right? And
Right.
they go from
Yeah.
there. Well,
yeah.
okay, so let's talk about the Star Wars. Which one? This was,
Episode 3,
what was its subtitle, though?
Revenge of the Sith.
Those were the ones that had a lot of green screen stuff.
Yes. It was filmed like entirely digitally. They acted in green screens. Yeah, it was, George had computers, and this is what he could do.
He played with them. Okay, did it hold up?
Over the years have kind of softened I never hated the prequels, but I always was disappointed by them considering how good the original 3 movies were. I still stand by the fact that The Phantom Menace was not a good movie.
Right.
It was cheesy, and you can kind of skip it and just watch episodes. If all you did was watch episodes 2 and 3, I think you would be fine. I thought episodes 2 and 3 were decent, and I think over the years they've grown on me a lot more. Like I think episode 2 and 3 in particular are pretty good movies. A good amount of action, story moved along, they weren't, not too many slow parts, good action. I liked them in general, and it did help you better understand, how Darth Vader came to be.
But isn't there a disconnect when you put all this together? Like if you watch them in order and then you get to those old-timey ones where you go, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. I mean, part of it also is George never stopped tinkering with the originals. So, he did the special editions and they cleaned them up. He always said he hated the original movie, that first one that came out in 1977. He always said that first print was not what he intended to put out. So that's why he's always felt like he had the liberty to continue working on it. There's actually, like, right around now, there's going to be a screening. They have an original print that went into theaters in 1977, and they're going to show that one. And that was like the version before they added, episode 4, A New Hope, to the crawl. Like, this
And
is
that's
the
what
one
we want to see.
It just says Star Wars, but that's the one he does not want you to see, because he says that is not finished and not how he wanted it to air. So I think he did enough tinkering with the special editions where if you do watch them in order from 1 to 3, and then 4 to 6 that he did, they hold up okay. There is if you go start Googling, right? Go Google the machete order. There's like this thing called, I think it's called the machete way of watching it. Like machete being like you can chop it up and this, that, and the other. And there's a way that was suggested that you watch the original movies. So a lot of people who grew up on them, like me, saw them episodes 4, 5, 6. And then we had to go back 1, 2, 3. And then people said, well, if you never saw them before, you could watch them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So then there's this other line of thinking where you don't even do that. You skip episode 1 and just forget it doesn't even exist. And then
Dead
you go
to me.
right. And then you go and watch them in this weird order of like, you actually start with episode maybe 4, and then you go back to 2, and then watch 3, and then come back to 5 and 6. There's like some crazy way of doing it. And the thinking is once you watch like 2 of them, then you go back and watch some of the older ones or some of the newer ones, but earlier in the timeline, it actually makes the character references easier to understand. I don't know. It's crazy. It's a crazy concept, but if you're looking for a way to watch Star Wars, do it the machete way.
Could you imagine, though, the person has to keep track of all of this?
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be somebody at the Disney Studios who is, no, we can't do that. That was not possible in episode 6. So,
right. I mean, it's continuity. So yeah, they do try to stick with canon. I mean, when Disney bought it, they did throw out a lot of stuff that George was not involved with that up to that point had been considered canon, and now they call it Legends. But some of that Legends material they've actually incorporated into some of the cartoons and shows and stuff that they've done. So it's been interesting, but yeah, I mean, it's fun to go see it. I don't need to go back to the theater and watch episode 3 again. But
did your daughter like it or not?
Yeah, she did. She's she grew up in a different era. She didn't grow up like only knowing Empire Strikes Back and things like that. It's a different era. The female characters have gotten stronger over the years. So I think like, as a young woman, she appreciates it in a different way than I did as a young boy who, it was just more of a guy thing, I think, back then. So I think it's become more inclusive as a franchise.
Does she say, where are all the girls?
Not anymore. I mean, there's
the new ones do.
Yeah,
but those old ones.
No, she's never really questioned it. I think she's fine with it. Yeah.
Was this just a special showing, or are they doing a whole bunch of them?
It's in the theater. I think it's been in the theater for about 2 weeks now. And it's actually it's grossed about 25 million domestic, so it's making money.
Wow. We'll see the next one then. That'll be coming.
Exactly. Yep. So it was fun.
Over the weekend, I also watched a whole series.
Okay.
And it's from the producers of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Mm-hmm. So you're expecting something, right?
I'm expecting like Bruce, you said Mrs. Maisel. What does Mrs. Maisel 2? This is going to be awesome, just like that.
It's going to be great. And what happens, it's called Étoile, Etoile, which means star in French. And now we're getting precious, right? We're going, this is a little,
You're starting to lose me.
success breeds the ability to do whatever you want, I guess.
Right.
So they asked the Palladinos, what would they like to make? Well, Amy Sherman Palladino, the one who really writes all these and kind of gets them going, has always been a dance fan. She had a series called Bunheads, and she's always kind of been on the fringes of that world and wanted to do something with it. And so she created this series about a New York ballet company and a Paris ballet company. Okay, now we're starting to see the money, right? We're going to shoot in Paris and in New York. Yes, we are. And we're going where the New York City Ballet is. So that's Lincoln Center. And we're going to have to spend some big money to rent the place. Yep, we are. And it just, you can see the costs of all of this just multiplying in your head. But it's how both of these companies are looking for ways to attract new audiences. They both feel that they've kind of reached a wall. And where do we find the money? Well, they have the billionaire who wants to just put his name on everything and be the savior, but doesn't have any interest in dance whatsoever. You have the brash new artists who want to create different kinds of dances that maybe the audience won't go there. There are social media aspects. So there's a lot kind of stirring. But half of it's in French. So you're reading subtitles while you're going through all of this. And I didn't think it was that much different from a lot of those behind-the-scenes dance movies, like Center Stage, for example. Kind of the same problems that exist, but there are people who are pretty good. Luke Kirby, who was in Mrs. Maisel as Lenny Bruce.
Lenny Bruce, right.
Plays the head of the New York dance company. And, you know, he's frustrated. Throughout the whole thing, he's frustrated. They bring in a lot of big names. If you're big into dance, a lot of big name choreographers are there. So there are bits and pieces of it that, you know, are interesting. But I don't know if this can hold still. And it's already been renewed. So there's another season coming. But I don't know that an audience is going to be there for something like this. It is such a specific concept.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I was looking up the fan reviews, you know, Rotten Tomatoes, kind of get a sense. So 86% from critics, 78% from fans, from just, you know, your average viewer. So not terrible. I mean, people seem to like it, but 78% from your general public probably isn't what you want. I think, you know, you want it to be more in like 90 or above.
Yeah. It's well done. It looks like $1 million.
Right.
You can see the money on the screen. They have clever ideas, but do I want to hang with whiny people? There's one really good line where her dancers are all, this head of the company, her dancers are all complaining and they're arguing, and she says, "All right, free cigarettes for everybody." And the dancers all start running because they get free cigarettes. Okay, cute. I think that the jury is still out on that one, and it just dropped this last week. What have you been watching? Andor Part 4?
Andor. I'm still just a few episodes. I'm like a week behind on Andor, but it's really good. I really, really like it.
You're savoring it.
Yeah. Last of Us. Wow. I mean, that has just been big to start. Yeah, I don't want to say too much to give away anything, but that second episode was not what I was expecting for episode 2. Like, that was more of a, this is how we're going to end the season kind of thing. Then this is, you know, we're not even like a quarter of the way into the series. So I was pretty shocked by episode 2. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. I got to pick up episode 3, and then, yeah, I'm a little bit behind on, I got caught up and ahead on Handmaid's Tale, but I think I'm now a week behind. So, you know, that's another one where I like it. It's good. But, you know, we're just not quite where it needs to be, as a series. So,
yeah, I think, now we're getting spring fever, really. It's like, I don't want to sit still for something that isn't going to really hold my interest. In the winter, I can do it.
Right.
But in the summer and in the spring, you're asking a lot. I also, this last week, had to watch a number of reality series because there are awards. God, they can make a reality show about anything, can't they?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You throw it out there and you think,
You just make a show, people will watch it.
yeah. So to bring this full circle, there's a job for those actors that don't have something else to do. Reality shows.
The reality of it is we've come to the end of another episode of Stream the Screen, but be back again next week for a new episode.